So I went and watched the 10 most viewed how to squat videos there is on YouTube to see whether they would all agree or whether they differ in opinions, because you would think that most fitness professionals would agree on the basics of how to do a squat, but surprisingly they don't. So today we're going to go through the things they do agree with before we go through all the points that they disagree with each other on. Let's get stuck into it. So let's quickly run through 4 key points that most of the people on the list agreed with. First of all, 8 of them mentioned that you should keep your feet at least shoulder width apart. And that makes sense. We want to squat how we would normally stand. And so that, for most of us, is about shoulder width apart. We also had 7 videos mentioning that you should squat like you're sitting in a chair. It's a great way to make sure that our knees don't shoot too far forward, because if they do, it could put excess pressure on our knees that could lead to issues over time. We also had 6 of them mention that we should keep our chest out. A nice way to say that we should keep a nice posture as we're doing our squats. We also had another 6 saying that our knees should track with our toes. So wherever our feet are pointing, that's the way our knees should travel. And that's pretty self-explanatory, so that we keep our joints in the same alignment. Now let's have a look at some of the points that they disagreed on. So the first point that some of the videos disagree on is the orientation of your toes. So 5 videos talk about your feet being slightly turned out. And there's one video that talks about your feet facing straight ahead. Now in this case, I would go with the majority. Having your feet slightly turned out is how you naturally stand, and it also allows us to get a little more depth with our squat than if we've got our toes facing straight ahead. That requires a little more flexibility. So I'm not 100% sure why that video talked about their feet straight ahead, but in this case, I think toes slightly turned out is the right choice. So one of the things they disagree on comes with breathing. So 3 of the videos talk about breathing in on the way down and breathing out on the way up. And this is really common with most exercises, breathing out on exertion. And it comes with trying to avoid a condition called Valsalva. That's where we hold our breath and our blood pressure can shoot up quite fast. And so if we breathe in and then breathe out on exertion, we get a little bit of tensing through our abs as we're coming back up again. Helps give us a little bit of support through our abdomen, but it makes sure that we keep breathing and that we don't build up this blood pressure. Now, if you don't have any blood pressure issues, then there's no real issue with the Valsalva maneuver. And I think that's why there's a different opinion, because we've got 2 videos that mention breathing in on the way down and then holding your breath until you get through the hardest part of the movement. Now both of these channels are dealing with barbell squats rather than bodyweight squats, and so they're talking to a population that's doing probably heavier squats, guys that are interested in bodybuilding, strength building, powerlifting, who are looking for performance more than anything and probably don't have any health conditions that are blood pressure related. And so the advantage of going down and then holding your breath is you get a much stronger intra-abdominal pressure. Intra-abdominal pressure helps add pressure against our lower back internally, and it helps support our lower back and lessens the chance of a lower back injury. So all 5 videos are looking at safety as a priority, but they're just looking at it in different ways. So if you're doing a really heavy barbell squat, I probably would hold my breath as I get through that hardest part of the movement. If you're doing bodyweight squats, dumbbell squats, goblet squats, something that's a bit lighter for more reps, I'd try to breathe in on the way down and out on the way up. The next point some videos disagree on is the depth of the squat. So we've got 2 videos that are talking about going as deep as your knees, and then we've got 3 videos that talk about going deeper than your knees. Now I think this one is a little bit personal. It takes a lot of flexibility to get that deep, and often people will lose their posture. They'll lose that neutral spine if they go too deep. So in this case, I would go as deep as I possibly can while keeping a nice posture, and then that would be the limit of my squat, because the risk versus the reward at that point becomes outweighed, and there's too much chance of injury for the gains that you might get by going that little bit deeper. The next point some videos disagree on is the weight placement when you're doing your squat. So 3 videos talk about putting the weight through your heels, and then there's one video that talks about putting the weight through your midfoot. So a more balanced approach between your heels and forefoot. Now, I think why those 3 videos talk about the heels a lot is because when you're teaching beginners, most of the time they put the weight through their forefoot. So you're always trying to encourage them to get their weight back through their heels. But really, I agree with the 4th video, the one that talks about putting the weight through your midfoot. When you're doing squats, it's not really natural to place 100% of your weight through your heels. It's more natural to put that weight through your whole foot so that you've got a nice spread out base of support and you're more stable during your squat. So that would be my advice. The next point that some videos disagree on is keeping neutral spine. So neutral spine is that little bit of curve to our thoracic spine up here, and then a little bit of curve to our lumbar spine down here. They make a bit of an S shape. Now 5 videos talk about keeping that neutral spine throughout your entire squat. So as soon as we start to lose that little bit of curve in our lower back, that's it. We stop our squat there and come back up again. I think it's a great piece of advice for keeping things really safe with the squat. Now there's 2 videos that talk about allowing a little bit of butt wink. Now butt wink is when we go down so deep, we lose a little bit of flexibility in our hamstrings, pulls that pelvis under, and we lose that little bit of curve in our lumbar spine. Now, these 2 videos that are talking about allowing a little bit of butt wink are 2 channels that are talking to bodybuilding and powerlifting athletes, and really what I would classify as advanced lifters. And they probably know what their body is capable of lifting and capable of working with in a safe way. So in this case, I don't really disagree with either side. If I was a beginner or intermediate lifter, I would definitely keep neutral spine and get really comfortable with my squats and keep things as safe as possible. If I was an advanced lifter and I'm really working on performance and really working on lifting the most amount of weight that I can, and I know what I'm capable of, then I may allow a little bit of butt wink. But I certainly wouldn't go too far and really lose that shape too much to try and get super deep. It's just not worth it. The last point some of the videos disagree on is where your knees should be in relation to your toes. So one video talks about your knees being behind your toes, another video talks about your knees being over your toes, and another video talks about your knees going slightly in front of your toes. For me, I think as long as you're keeping a really nice posture, trying to push your hips back like you're sitting in a chair, and you've got that weight through your midfoot, where your knees go is probably perfectly fine. Because we've all got different dimensions. We've all got different limb lengths versus our torso lengths. So no squat is going to be exactly the same as another squat. So at this point, I would just follow all the key points that we've already mentioned and not be too concerned with where your knees are, as long as you're doing everything else correctly. As you can see, there's a lot of different opinions with some of the techniques of the squat, and it's like this for a lot of exercises. So if you're going to try an exercise for the first time, I would definitely watch a few different videos first so you get a few different opinions and get an idea of what points are relevant to you. I think it's always a good sign if the person doing the video explains why you should or shouldn't do something. At least that way you get a good understanding of what you should be doing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. If you want to see more comparison videos like this one, put a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.